All right, man, so let's talk about the Raiders here for a little bit. Look, Vegas has been in the news a lot this offseason, obviously linked to Tom Brady very early in the process. Ever since then, the Raiders have been very active, making big time moves, and they're not done. There's an interesting report that just came out that could be an indicator either one way or the other of a huge Raiders move down the pipe that I think is a really smart indication from this Raiders organization.
Yeah, Nick, the Raiders have been making moves left and right this offseason. I think they've been a lot of really good ones, but who would know better than us? And that's none other than you, the fans of the Las Vegas Raiders. That's why in the comments below, we want you to give us your offseason grade for the Raiders and maybe let us know a little bit of why you're giving them that grade. I think there's a lot of interesting moves, and I'm really excited to hear some of the insights from the Raiders fans on why they think they're a good or maybe bad move. You never know what they're going to say. But anyways, Nick, let's get into this story of something really smart that the Raiders have done.
Yeah, so obviously after the Tom Brady sweepstakes didn't work out, the Raiders, of course, acquired Jimmy Garoppolo. He most likely will be their quarterback, at least of the short term. Some people thought could potentially be quarterback beyond this season. We'll see how that all shakes out. But a lot of people believe that after acquiring Jimmy G, the Raiders would no longer be interested in getting a quarterback in this year's draft. They have been rumored at times to CJ Stroud, but there's a new report that indicates it may be the opposite going on. This is according to Yahoo.com. The Raiders may have signed Jimmy Garoppolo, but they're still in the market for a long-term solution at quarterback. That's clear from their pre-draft activities as NFL Media's Mike Garofalo reports a Raiders contingent met with quarterback Bryce Young on Wednesday night. The meeting with Young occurred after his dinner with the Panthers. Young is set to work out on Thursday at Alabama's Pro Day in Tuscaloosa. Las Vegas currently holds the number 7 overall pick in this year's draft. That seems like it would be too low to select Young, as there are 3 QB needy teams in the top 4 of the draft. The Raiders would likely have to trade up to possibly land the 2021 Heisman Trophy. The report from Yahoo.com ended on this. Garoppolo's contract made it clear that Raiders could still be in on the QBs in the draft as well, because Garoppolo's contract, it gives them an out after 1 year, depending on whether they get a young guy that they like better than Garoppolo. All right, Mice, here's what I like about this, and that's why I said it's a really smart move. After the Raiders acquired Jimmy Garoppolo, the feeling around the entire NFL circus was, okay, the Raiders are out of quarterback. They're not trading up anymore in the draft. Okay, we know they're not going quarterback early in the first round. Maybe later in the draft, something like that. They may take a flyer on guy, but they're out of the sweepstakes of any one of these guys in the top 10 in the NFL draft. That is not a position you want to be. You don't want the entire NFL to think they have you figured out as to where you're going, because that just puts you in a position of weakness for any trade forwards or trade backs. It just doesn't work out smart. In any negotiation, in any deal, you want the other side to have some doubt as to what your true intentions are and what you're trying to get out of it. Because it's like poker, right? Once you show your cards, it's too late, right? And a lot of the NFL thought, okay, the Raiders showed their cards. This meeting, taking the time, and remember, Miles, they only have so much time, so much availability to meet with players. By taking the time to meet with Bryce Young, whether they're interested in him or not, shows and sends a message to the rest of the NFL that the Raiders could still potentially be interested in trading up to gain quarterback in this year's draft. And so in that respect, they haven't showed all their cards, at least in the eyes of their opponents in the NFL. And from that perspective, I think this is a really smart move. Just taking the time to meet with Bryce Young and sending that message to the rest of the NFL. Miles, give me your thoughts on this move by the Raiders and just everything going forward at the quarterback position with this team.
Yeah, Nick, you put it beautifully with the poker analogy. I think the Raiders, they're in this position now. They're not showing their cards. They're more like they're c-betting a flush draw on the turn, and nobody knows what's going to come around the river, and the river being the draft. So the Raiders are just out here making big brain plays, and you don't know, Nick, because maybe they do trade up for a quarterback. There's always a possibility on the table. There's nothing saying that, they don't try to get into the top 4 to get one of these guys if they feel that is necessary. And you always got to do your due diligence. You got to feel it out. Now, we don't think that the Raiders are necessarily going to trade up high enough to get Bryce Young, but you never know. And you always got to keep them guessing. Never let them know your next move. And that was exactly what the Raiders are doing here. So it's very interesting, and it may be surprising to some people, but it shouldn't be, because that's what you should do. Whether or not they're going to get Bryce Young, that's not the point here. The point is, out of 10, let's say they interview 10 guys, 9 of them could be guys that they really legitimately think are going to be there at the point in time when they're going to draft. But that 10th guy being Bryce Young, it makes you say, wait a minute, what are the Raiders doing? They're interviewing a quarterback. We thought they got a quarterback. And that is where they get teams. If you get them off edge, off balance just a little bit, that's when maybe a guy falls down the board to you because someone's too worried about going to get their quarterback. and you could pick up a really solid player in the draft next. So I agree with you. Really smart move by the Raiders. I'm excited to see how it plays out on draft night and what the Raiders actually do.
Yeah, because one thing to remember, and I think a lot of fans may be like, well, it's just a dinner. Come on, what could that really mean? Remember, there's only so much time that these teams actually have to meet with or when I say recruits, I'm sorry, potential draft prospects. And when you don't have a whole lot of time, right? It's already late March. The draft's about a month away, right? When you don't have that much time to actually go through this evaluation process, you can't go through and say, I want to go and interview and have dinner with all 300 prospects I could potentially draft in the NFL. No, you just don't have the time. You can only focus on, like you said, Miles, maybe 9, 10, 11 guys. So for the Raiders to focus on Bryce Young in this situation, it definitely sends the message to the rest of the teams in the NFL. Go like, hey, listen, we don't think they're going quarterback. We think they're behind Jimmy G, but they did just cut Derek Carr after 1 year, and Jimmy G's deal does give them an out after 1 year. They were just all in on Brady, so Jimmy G isn't their, obviously the top guy on their list. They've been rumored to other guys like C.J. Stroud before. Could they potentially be trading up? And we have a team like the Colts or a team maybe like the Lions that may be thinking of getting quarterback. It just puts a seed of doubt in their minds and makes them potentially be over aggressive when they really don't need to, which allows, like you said, Mize, a quality player that the Raiders were actually targeting to fall in their lap free of charge. And that's why I love these kind of moves. These mind games before the draft just shows some really smart decisions by teams that can be huge for them in the long run. So great job by Ziegler and the Raiders. Seems like a little thing, but I think it will mean a lot come draft day.